Last time out in the V1 Malta series, we ended up having to take a trip over to the Hungaroring for what was one of the more sort of slower races. One was one that ended up building and building, and what ended up happening was a fabulous race in the end for the none other than Andrea Borg. In the V1 Malta series, we now take a trip over to the Styrian Mountains in Austria. We should be in for an absolute blinder. It is myself alongside Adam Reed here tonight for this absolute cracker. Adam should be in for a good one here. This one more known for its overtaking.
Absolutely. Hi, James. We're in for an absolute corker here at Spielberg. A Sagi that is so fast, and with these aerodynamic cars, it should make for an absolute cracker of a race. We've got a 20 car field, so many interesting stories to take you through this incredible season so far. We're only 2 rounds in, but it has been hot to handle, maybe too hot to handle for some. As we now look into the race results from last time out, Andrea Borg taking the win from Alexander Galler and David Misford. It was a fantastic result with Daniel Chinny coming back with 4th place after his DNF at Zandvoort, with Michael McMullen, Matthew Kassar, Emerson Zarb, Simeon Nechev, and Kirsten Krumi and Neil Kassar rounding out your top 10 in a highly competitive field. We'll have to see what the third round offers, with plenty up at stakes.
Yeah, plenty certainly up at stakes. Race results suggests Andrea Borges got the initial pace. He really did have it as well at Zandvoort Reverse as well a couple of weeks prior to this one, but nonetheless he wasn't able to convert. Now he has. Alexander Galea, the defending world champion, looking to try and keep up with the pressure. You may notice as well Dave Potts himself, David Misford in P3. It's a great effort as well from the man in the Williams, but one thing that we do know going into this particular race is that it might end up closing up a little bit. Let's take a look at the driver standings as a result of this one, because the driver standings immediately suggests Andrea Borg has got that initial pace. The defending champion still, though, in the top 3, sharing the points with Matthew Kassar on 33. There is Dave Potts, David Misford in 4th, with Michael Misford McMullen in 5th. But, the initial sort of flex that we have here between all of the drivers that had the pace is now that some assists have been turned on for the rest of this season. Going into this race, we will now be having an opportunity, maybe, for those like Christian Kermy, Simon Nischev, and Samuel Borg, potentially to close up the gap, because they have got the opportunity now to turn on their traction control. So that could be something to keep an eye on, especially with the team standings, because the team standings are also suggesting as well that it's very much a bit of a mixed bag, but Williams are the ones that have got that consistency, Adam.
They do. They've scored 25 and 22 points in the last 2 rounds. I don't only one of the 2 other teams have got over 20 points in a singular round, and that was Alpine at Budapest and Mercedes at Zandvoort. So, there's so much up for grabs, and Williams really being consistent despite their drive being 4th and 5th in the championship. There's still so much to play with, and I'm not going to maybe turn down at the likes of McLaren down there in 4th. They can definitely make something up with having a look further down. Ferrari have been doing not too bad. They're still struggling a little bit with Daniel Chinny doing most of the heavy work here, and then you've got the Racing Bulls there in P6, followed by Aston Martin and Sauber, Haas, and Red Bull failing to score in these opening 2 rounds. But I think Spielberg could definitely open it up, especially if there are given opportunities for those drivers and teams further down the field.
Yeah, turns 1, potentially, if you get a good run out of turn 10, we're expecting turn 3 and 4 to potentially be some hot spots. But in equal cars, turns 7 and 8 have also prone to be positions where you could go side by side as well. So they could be ones to watch. Daniel Chinny won it last time out, of course, here. And then Jake Sammet has the lap record at the moment with that 104.887. Himself, our director for this particular event. But this is round number 3. This is Austria. Early indications are suggesting that Williams and Alpine are the 2 sort of teams to consider. But Andrea Borg is absolutely flying high in form at the moment. But between the 2 Williams boys, they're putting a good shift in to potentially not make it a double trouble event for Alpine Renault.
Indeed, they are. A couple of statistics I found out a little bit before we started on the broadcast. This circuit has been very interesting when it comes to pole position. You think that if you were on that first or maybe second row or maybe in third row, you'd be able to win. No, in the 4 seasons that we've been here, pole position has taken the win on 3 accounts. Only Jake Sammets has failed to do so, and even then, he had a third place. So if you're on pole, you're almost guaranteed to carry on with that podium streak. So it's going to be massively interesting. And even we've had 4 different winners in the 4 different seasons we've been here. Hugely interesting. This is massively going to open up the championship. So we're going to be kind of looking around for drivers that haven't won it. Of course, Daniel Chinny is still on the grid, looking at all our winners. But he's the only one on that grid who's actually won this race.
Well, with medium traction control on, obviously that offers an opportunity for things to potentially close down in the midfield and the back of the field, potentially towards the front. We could see some unexpected events in what will be qualifying in just a few short moments. We'll be going to a quick break, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, we should be in for an absolute cracker. Don't go away. Straight into qualifying if you want.
Sounds like a plan.
Welcome back to V1 Malta and the Velocity Esports channel. This program brought to you by Hyundai, Intercomp, Monster Energy, Brand Garage, Level Academy and The Specialist. It is myself alongside Adam Reed here tonight for what will be no doubt one of the more intriguing races. Of course, this is the Austrian Grand Prix, qualifying just a few short moments away. Adam, what are the expectations going into this one? We've got a little mixed bag, change of rules. We've got medium traction control back on to close up that gap between the drivers in skill and a circuit that offers plenty of opportunities for overtaking.
You're right on that one. It's going to be a very clumped circuit, I think, especially having 20 cars on one grid. It's going to be completely different dynamic compared to what you normally have when there's a big wide open amount of space. This is one of the shortest circuits on the calendar, if not the shortest, as of course Monaco has never used in league racing just because of the narrow nature of that circuit. So it will be definitely a completely different zone for everyone else. So I think it's going to be pretty much maximum attack as you head around the lap.
Yes, so fingers crossed, obviously, we'll be getting into qualifying to see those maximum pace laps because, of course, in this particular event, there is no Q1, Q2, Q3. We're straight to qualifying and then we're straight to the race. But one other thing that we've got to be keep an eye out on as well is now we've got a formation lap in this particular event, and obviously that puts a smile on both our faces, not getting caught out by people jumping the gun and trying to get going for the race events. But that gives everyone an opportunity to get a feel of the circuit, just understand how green the circuit is ahead of going into the main race. Now that is going to be fairly critical, I think, Adam, because that's going to give especially the more skilled drivers the opportunity to get an understanding of the circuit ahead of time, so they know what to expect when the red lights go out.
Indeed, that will give them a little bit of grip levels. They'll be able to assess the circuit conditions out in Spielberg. We load into qualifying, and you can see there in the top left, 18 minutes have been put on the clock. Welcome to qualifying for round number 3 of the V1 Malta Series for Season 8, and it is underway. 20 cars will go out onto the circuit and attack this superb piece of Austrian asphalt that was owned by Red Bull leader Dietrich Mateschitz, who completely re-evolved the circuit into what it is now. Brought back in 2014, and the first car that is heading out onto the circuit is a Williams racing car, potentially David Mifsud or Michael Mullen.
We'll see anyway as the drivers leaving out of the pits now. Both Williams boys now heading out as well, but caught out split by one of the Kick Saubers. A quick reminder of this particular event then, of course, multiple drivers can sort of come and go within this particular league. We've got 2 reserve drivers in tonight, both taking the Haas seats. So you'll be wondering of the names. Panzer SPD as Raymond Borge, that's number 3 Haas tonight, and Daniel Galea, that's Daniel 0689, racing with the number 89. Is in the other Haas as well. So 2 reserve drivers, otherwise everyone full-time. Alexander Galea, of course, in the McLaren alongside his smooth operator Isaac Barbara. You've got Daniel Chinny in the Ferrari alongside Samuel Borge, Keith Muscat, Bari alongside Jake Miljak in the Red Bulls. In the Mercedes, Matthew Kassar and Kirsten Kumi, your normal pairing at Mercedes. You've got Christian Kumi and Adam Koshecki in the Aston Martins, Andrea Borge and Aaron Dimesh in the Alpines, Emerson Zarb and Epron Tabone, that's Milanist, and Holdzef in the Racing Bulls, David Misford and Michael Misford-McMullen in the Williams, and then Sinan Nechstev and Neil Kassar at the foot of the table with the Kick Saubers. So on board with Michael Misford-McMullen as he goes through turn number 1. We're going to catch you off guard with this one, Adam, as he approaches into turn 3, take us on a lap around the Styrian Mountains.
Was up the hill in towards turn number 3. You're trying to break right at that 100-meter board. A little bit early there of braking there from McMullen, as he'll now power himself all the way down on towards these long straight once again. And now you're having a look. Let gravity do a little bit of the work in towards turn number 4, and you're rotating the car as much as you possibly can. Then follow on through 5 and then in towards the right, that curve on the right hand side just a little bit to open up the turning for turn number 6. Now you're carrying all the speed in towards 7 and through 8 you go. It is completely a little bit of a lift downshift as well in towards 7 and then on towards 8 is just completely flat. Then you're just lifting a little bit in towards 9 and then in towards turn number 10, really attacking that corner, right the curve on the outside line and close off the lap, and it's going to be 1 minute 4.941 for McMullen, but his teammate Potsi goes forward with a 104.1. Dangerous lap times already.
Yes, David Misford immediately showing his pace in the Williams. Here is Koshecki coming across the line, 107.327. It's not a particularly valid lap time from a general pace perspective. Simeon Nechchev is just getting going with his lap after validating. Jake Kos comes across the line to go P2. There is the other Alpine of Aaron Dimesh going P5, but then there is Daniel Chinny going up to P2. He wants to bounce back after a pretty poor round number 1 as Matthew Kassar goes top of the table with a 104.1 of his own. Here is the McLaren. It's the defending champion Alexander Galea as he comes across the line. He goes P4 with a 104.368. I think we've got one of the Alpines now coming. Here is this Andrea Borge. It certainly is. He's just coming through the second sector. 4.46, not too bad in the second sector, looking to try and get somewhere, I think, near Daniel Gaming here as he comes across the line. Oh, wow, he absolutely obliterates it in the third sector. 104.0 and goes fastest of anyone so far. We've got a Red Bull coming across now as well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that Jake Kos now in just entering the pit lane? No, it is not, forgive me. I believe it's one of the other blue tinted cars. Other drivers now getting on the lap here is Jake Cos. I believe he is on an in lap now, certainly. But first round at the moment is looking fairly stable at the front. You'd expect, you expected sort of those towards the front. Yeah, I think they're all within around about 2/10 of each other, not too bad. Here's the other Mercedes, by the way, of Intercomp, who will be looking to try and get somewhere near his teammate Matthew Cassar, currently in P2.
Yeah, I think it'll be important for Mercedes. The Silver Arrows have been running pretty well. They're third of the championship. They want to bounce back from Budapest after picking up only 8 points. Those 8 points coming from Matthew Cassar. And speaking of Kirsten Kumi, only finished 13th last time around. So yeah, he's currently trying to build on himself every single race week, really trying to just push those limits as much as he possibly can. But when your teammates as good as Matthew Cassar, you're really having to try and pick up your game. This is a sport where your teammate's your biggest rival, and that's very, very rare in the sporting world. But obviously on this lap, he's going to try and maximize everything he can out of his Mercedes-powered Silver Arrow as he heads up the hill on towards number 3 and just tries to open it up again, perfect before then just locking up that inside front corner, and then we'll just power it all the way back down. He's picking up a little bit of slipstream ahead. I believe that's a Red Bull, which will be Keith Muscat. Sorry, it's a Racing Bull. My apologies. So that should be either that'll be probably Ephraim Tabot, in all honesty. But then it's these sections where you start picking up a little bit of dirty and you start washing out to the outside, which is not what you want. But he's still managing to turn through the corners. I just wonder if he's got quite a low downforce setup.
Yeah, Emerson Saab, I think, just diving into the pit lane imminently, unless he's on a cool push at the moment here. Here comes then the other Mercedes. Kirsten Kumi wants to bounce back after a pretty poor event last time out. He comes across the line and goes P8 overall, so a little bit down the order, about 7/10 of a second actually to his teammate. Got a very slow Racing Bull in the middle. Not sure what's happening there, but fingers crossed it's not going to be causing too many issues. In fact, it is actually. There is Promptable has just left the pit lane. He's very slow at the moment out there, so I'm not entirely sure what he's thinking. I'm hoping he's just trying to keep out of the way of people, but if you're that slow, your tyres are not going to be particularly switched on. Here are both of the reserve drivers, as it's getting particularly loud in the room. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we'll be able to get some... Forgive me, apologies. I'm just trying to calm things down in my ears because it's getting very loud out there. He comes across the line now, does the two Hassers rather. They're just trying their hardest now to set themselves up because they're obviously reserve drivers. No high expectations for themselves, but they're hoping to potentially get some good points on the board.
Yeah, they are, and that's going to be a moment there, but very lucky that you're on an out lap rather than a flying lap, otherwise there'll be a massive hands up gesture. Just going back to my previous point about the low downforce setup on potentially one of our drivers, Kirsten Kumi, who we were talking about, as he goes, what is that, 3,000ths of a second ahead of Emerson Zarp, who is ahead of him. You can definitely, maybe just tune up the aerodynamics just so you can maybe rotate through some of the corners, especially in that middle section. That's kind of what you need. If you just put too less downforce, you're going to be absolutely hammering it down the straight. But then you'll get to the corners and it just won't rotate, and you'll be complaining for the most of the qualifying session. You're losing rotation, and of course these are in park thermic conditions. They won't be able to change anything apart from a few little things on the car. They'll probably be able to change the front downforce, but that will be about it in terms of the aero side. So if you're pretty much too loose to the rear, then you're going to really struggle from there. Mifsud keeping on a really good lap. He's looks like he's got his great aero balance on the car as he zooms his way in towards turn number 9. How much commitment does he want down into 6th gear, carrying a lot of rev there? So a lot of momentum is flowing through the Williams car as he makes his way over the timing beam. It's only second by 1,000 ahead of Matthew Cassar, but that just shows you the gap between the top 3 and what we're dealing with. And we're seeing Daniel Chinny and Alexander Galea, who are really pushing forward. And speaking of Chinny, he goes up to second into the 04.0, which is only being matched by Andrea Borg, and Matthew Casal will go over the line because I think he's now starting a push lap.
Yeah, cool push, cool by the looks of things for Matthew Kasarczyk. Kos going one, surprised he's kept his lap there actually. Here he comes then across the line right now, 104.459. I'm very surprised he's kept his lap there, to be honest with you. Andrea Borg coming across the line, 103.744. The Alpine ever in form and looking very strong. Simeon Nechchev going across the line to come P5. It's a great effort from the Kick Sauber as well. So good effort from him. He has got the qualifying pace actually, Simeon Nechchev, but his race pace not quite there. He could be one to really mess things up, especially now we've got the medium traction control on the cards here. Here is Lesu then. This is Alexander Galea just chucking the car through the right-hander as he's about to get going with his lap now, the defending champion. A little bit out of form versus Andrea Borg. Andrea Borg looking like he's got a little bit more pace in this particular event, but this particular lap could really set that one out as it goes through to turn one, and very well planted is that McLaren Mercedes.
He does seem to be quite planted. It doesn't seem like Alexander Galea, but the reigning champion will probably want a little bit more. And speaking of more, he is really trying to push that far. But, you know, when you're 700s down, you know, you're not the best size. But that kind of tells me, has he maybe upped the aerodynamics on for this section? So we'll see if he can potentially go maybe purple in this sequence. But you know, we'll have to keep an eye on that. He's just got to try and keep that as low as he possibly can in that McLaren Mercedes. He's really attacking a lot. And there you go. Second sector has gone purple faster than anyone, and he is within 300ths of a second to Andrea Borg's time, attacking turn at number 9. That's probably fastest than anybody. Looks like Alexander Galea is going to go over the line here. Very low fuel on him. And he only goes P4, so I think he may have dropped a little bit of time, maybe in that first sector, but he is a huge contender for for maybe the win, if he can maybe keep it within a race distance. Look at McMullen there. He looks pretty quick, almost half a second up, and this should push him in towards maybe the top 6. He goes over the timing B, just shy of it, in towards P7. That will put him on the 4th row of the grid.
I'm just keeping an eye on Rocket as well. This is Samuel Borg and the other Ferrari improving a little bit. If he comes across the line right now, he does improve by 0.5 of a second, but he doesn't improve on his position. He stays in 17th place as we've got the other Haas now leaving the pit lane. Here is who we're going to go with. Who we're going to go with, Mr. Director? Shall we go with... Let's go with this smooth operator, actually, if you don't mind. So there's Isaac Barbara in P13. He is someone who is on a slow lap by the looks of things at the moment, that I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you. Now, Isaac Barbara's got a little bit more pace than him than P13, I would suspect, but if McLaren want to take the benefit of having the defending champion within their ranks, they need to have their second driver sort of up there with him, but the pace differential between the pair of them at the moment is nearly 9/10. In fact, it's over 9/10 of a second. That's an extortionate amount of time to find. So what has Isaac Barbara got to do if he wants to try and get close to his world champion teammate?
It's just trying to extract the speed out of the car, really, and you know it's very, very difficult because you know every single driver has their individual and unique driving style, and I think for him, you know, it's just about trying to maximise absolutely everything. You know, I think he's going to go into the pits now and just trying to get one final lap going as the track temperature and grip is going to be up to optimum prime usage here. Let's have a look at Raymond, I think it's Daniel Galea, in fact, there in P16. Currently with a 1 minute 5.651, heading over the Niki Lauda curve. And he'll throw himself on towards turn number 2 and 3, really trying to make up some time here. He's 0.08 of a second up here, but with Haas looking like one of the teams that seem to be struggling this, this season. You know, it's not going to be an ideal situation for them. Meanwhile, the two Red Bulls of Jake Melyak and Keith Muscat running in the top 10, so positive signs for Red Bull, but of course they still have a very, very long race ahead of them, so you know, don't count your chickens too early, and we'll see how that all turns out. Another fact I've just seen, 6 teams in the top 6 completely different teams in the top 6, then you've got that Williams car in 7th, So Red Bull are technically the second team with both of their drivers kind of in the top 10. So of course you get both Williams and you got both Red Bulls and you got both Mercedes. That's kind of where both are at the moment. So looking pretty close in terms of team comparison.
Yeah, in terms of sort of how close the closeness between teams, driver A and driver B, Williams and Red Bull seems to have got that about right at the moment. We're on board with Jake Malak at the moment, and we just saw I think a lap also just getting started from man just in behind him as well. That is the reserve driver of Raymond Borge. We're still following then this man, Jake Malak, as he's looking to try and find a little bit of time. Not too bad in the second sector either, so trying to close down and looking at potentially the likes of Simeon Nechstev, maybe find a couple of tenths if he can help it. His teammate just on an outlap, he's about just finishing his outlap as well, approaching the penultimate corner, and he has beaten Simeon Nechstev as he goes P6 overall. So not a bad lap time indeed from the Red Bull, but the track is ever improving, and of course he is a little bit out of sync with everyone else. Here's the remaining racing bull of Emerson Zarb. You may notice his teammate down in 20th yet to set a lap. He did disconnect from this session around about, I want to say 6 or 7 minutes ago, and he's yet to rejoin. So I have a gut feeling that Epron Bohm is going to be starting at the back of the grid when this race is over. Is going to get started. This is assuming he even manages to reconnect back into the session, that is. Outlaps galore at the moment. We've got people on outlaps, including people like Matthew Kassar, who's just now approaching turn number 9 as he gets going with his lap in that Mercedes. Now coming through into turn number 10. Not a bad turn 10 either. I think he could probably take a little bit more of that curb though as he goes towards turn 1 and tries to close down the gap on Andrea Borge, who's just now leaving the pits.
Is indeed, and of course these will be the moments where you've really got to just lock in and focus on your lap. I'm sure a lot of drivers may do the real life kind of visualization that is so useful to real life Formula One drivers. See how busy the circuit is. Only one driver in the pit to make that 2. Then it's both racing bulls of Emerson Zarb and Efron Bohm. Let's keep an eye here on David Nifsford. He currently sits in P5. Probably one of the drivers to keep an eye out for. He's got to try and put that in the 1 minute 3 as he gets the car rotated through turn number 4, and he'll just pull the car on towards and shift up the gears on towards the sweeping corner where you're trying to put all the stress through the tyre and not try and kill the tyres before you get down towards turn 9 and 10. He's a little bit up here, riding the limits as close as you possibly can. He's getting a bit of slipstream from ahead as well, but then you've got the trouble of trying to rotate it around in towards 9. He's invalidated as well. Invalidation for David Nifsford, and that's going to signify the end of his qualifying session.
Keeping an eye on Daniel Chinny as well, and while this is all happening, for some reason we missed out on the lap against Matthew Kassar. He manages to find a little bit of time, puts himself 1:03.901. Meanwhile, Daniel Chinny has actually just been relegated to P4, where he finished in the last race in Hungary, because Alexander Galea has just gone P3 and 7 thousandths down on the Mercedes of Matthew Kassar, but fastest in the second sector for Daniel Chinny. So this could be one to keep an eye out on. The Red Bull there of Keith Muscat is happy with his lap in P9, can't go any further. Here comes Daniel Chinny, then not the cleanest of turn 9s, but is it going to improve? Oh, he's got pole with a 1:03.726. It's a cracker of a lap, but Andrea Borge has found time, 56 thousandths of a second in the second sector. I don't know about his first sector, but if it's anything like that one, we could be seeing a 1:03.5 imminently here, chucking the car through the right-hander of turn 9 and then into turn 10. Take as much of this curve as you dare. Absolutely planted is that Alpine Renault as he comes across the line, and he takes pole right back out the hands of the Ferrari. 1:03.675. It will be no improvements from the defending champion, but from this man Nifsford, he stays in P5. Here's Simeon Nechstev, a bit of a wild card in this one here in the Kick-Sauber. Here he comes across the line in true Nico Hulkenberg fashion, gets into the top 5. Great stuff from the Kick-Sauber, and we've got other lap times I think about done and dusted. I'm not anticipating any further improvements. We've got the Aston Martin of Kasheki, he's just entering in the pit lane, so I believe Andrea Borge has just got himself another pole position in this race, but it's by a very small margin indeed of a little bit under half a 10th rather, against Daniel Chinny, Matthew Kassar, then the defending champion of Alexander Galea, Simeon Nechchev, rounding out the top 5.
Yeah, fantastic qualifying for a lot of those drivers out there. Unfortunately for Ephraim Tabone, an internet connection issue meant he wasn't able to put in a lap, so he spent the majority of the time just trying to get back into the session, but obviously could not do that. But a hugely interesting grid, which I'm sure we'll go through on the brand new formation lap, which is new for the V1 Malta series this season, and that will give us a little bit of time just kind of control ourselves, being able to kind of control the pace as well, and then we can go through the grid, go through the stories, go through the tires as well, because that will be so important. Looking like it can be a one stop, but you know, two stop is also viable if you choose the correct tires and manage your tires well. So much up for grabs here, and it is the current championship leader of Andrea Borsch who puts it on to provisional pole position.
Yeah, cracking lap indeed from that Alpine Renault. We'll take a quick look then at this grid before we get into the main race. Of course, it will be an absolute cracker, no doubt. Andrea Borsch then on pole, 51 thousandths of a second from Daniel Chinny, then Matthew Kassar. Then you have the current defending champion himself of Alexander Galea. As we keep going down, Simeon Nechchev, Dave Misford, Jake Cos, you've got McMullen, Barry Milanis, and then of course the Aston Martins there also just sort of slipping in. You've got Chris Kick in there, Christian Kerme. As you head down towards the bottom, you've got the rest of them. The McLaren down in P14 is not a great place as well. The first of the reserve drivers in P15, Ronskins, Rocket, Kosheki. Panzer is the only person not to set a representative lap time. Holdzef did not set a lap at all. So this will now take us into the main race. We should be in for an absolute cracker, but we've got the ads as... Getting ourselves going then for this intense race ahead of us. The formation lap just coming to a very quick conclusion. Andrea Borg leading the way from Daniel Chinny, Matthew Cassar, and then, of course, Alexander Galea from Simeon Nechchev. Myself, James Otter, alongside Adam Reed for this one. Very quickly then, Adam, before we get going, early indications here. Andrea Borg has got the pace, but it's only by a very small margin against Chinny.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, those two were absolutely on fire during that qualifying session and really, really close. But keep an eye on that second row of Cassar and Alexander Galea. They could definitely cause troubles. A couple of hard tyre runners as well as medium tyres. Galea running on the hards. It looks like Cassar will run on the medium compound tyres. Dave Potsy, in fact, David Murphy will run 6. But what about Nechchev? He'll be a really interesting candidate. We head the 5 red lights.
Here we go then, the drivers are lined up, we're counting down those lights as the engines are roaring in the sound, and the hills are alive with the sound of those engines because no more waiting. Let's go racing here then in Austria. Andrea Borg immediately getting the jump, but I'll tell you what, a poor start in comparison to Chinny as it goes side by side. Oh, it's a little bit of a tax slap, well held from the Ferrari, but Matthew Cassar gets the jump, and then here comes Alexander Galea as well, getting a little bit of a turn and potentially going to be going 3 wide, going into turn number 3. It's going to be pretty close here. Here comes the Ferrari trying to defend from the McLaren. They bump wheels. They can get the move done. Daniel Chinny still leading the way then in the end from P2, but Andrea Borg immediately getting his elbows out here. Here comes as well, looks like the Mercedes trying to put some pressure on Alexander Galea down the inside of turn number 4. Very well crafted from the Mercedes. They're still side by side, but surely the traction is going to be done. Oh, Simeon Nechchev's gone for a spin at turn number 4, so he's now down at the back in P20. They carry on in formation from Andrea Borg, Daniel Chinny, Matthew Cassar. Then you've got Alexander Galea and then David Mifsford now up to P5.
Yeah, really good start there from a couple of our drivers. Daniel Chinny was so lucky to just hold on tabs there to that second place. The biggest gainer there was probably everyone to Bone there, who finishes in his cover. Oh, 2 cars in the barrier! 2 cars in the barrier. Oh dear.
Straight into the barrier themselves as they collide at turn number 10. You don't go side by side through there, gentlemen. And they've paid the price as a result. Down to P17 and 18, and no doubt with significant damage to their cars. We've still got some battle happening here. That's a battle for P14, 12, 13 at the moment as well. Hopefully we'll go back to P12 and 13 because that's where the racing is happening. Right behind in 12th and 13th place. No, we're going back towards the front here because Matthew Cassar trying to get into a bit of a scrap with Daniel Chinny at the moment. But as it stands, no racing happening there. But the racing was happening in 12th and 13th. You could see them getting into that little scrap. Look, it's still happening right now. There you've got the Ferrari of Samuel Borg getting in the mix, trying to get side by side here with the Aston Martin, of Adam Kolshecki. They continue on with the battle here, but it looks like to me that is just now starting to taper out. We've just missed that battle, but there is battles happening all over the shop at the moment, Adam.
It really is. And it's just a circuit that invites fighting all around this circuit. So the fastest lap time do get input here. So into all that first corner of Niki Lauda, and Andrea Borg will just be trying to focus on in front here. But look at Daniel Chinny feeling the pressure here. He's just within that second, but Matthew Cassar might want to go for a move. Lock up there from the inside corner of Andrea Borg, a little bit of bumping and barging, and that may have damaged slightly the front wing. It would have given it a little bit of a chip to the front wing of that Merc, but these medium tyre runners are looking pretty good. But as I said, keep an eye on that hard tyre runner of Alexander Galea. He's the only medium hard tyre runner in the top 7, as it looks like Keith Muscat is battling with Kirsten Kurmi for P7 on the road. There was a little bit of a tussle down at turn number 4. Oh, that's off the road. It goes what seems to be, I think that was Neil Cassar. Yeah, Neil Cassar, unfortunately, there in the green and black. Kit Sauber just getting shoved over by the Aston Martin of Christian Kurmi. So unfortunate moment for him. But now approaching him was Isaac Barbara, I believe. So yeah, it's going to be some tough battles here. We look back to the front here. Cassar's been given a penalty for what seemingly is going to be track limits. Again, he doesn't attack Chinny, but Chinny has plenty of experience in this championship to know that you don't have to defend immediately. But the exit, the traction that Merc has, seems to be absolutely impeccable. But at the straight line speed that the Ferrari is going to be really efficient with, So two different cars, two different dynamics, two different advantages. How's this going to play out for the rest of the race?
Lap 4 of 36 and already getting time penalties for track extension issues could pose a bit of a problem, and this may be the reason why the Aston Martin of Christian Kermy is getting into his own little battles at the moment. He's lagging all over the shop at the moment, so a lot of the cars are just not able to determine exactly where he is on circuit. And if you're going side by side, especially in complex corners like this one at turn 9 and 10, with a car that's lagging, you're almost certainly going to crash. That's going to be one to keep a very firm eye out on. We're going to keep an eye out as well on this battle here with the Mercedes. Now this is the one of Kirsten Kumi, the other Mercedes. Matthew Cassar up in P3, still battling with Daniel Chinny, by the way. That battle's starting to come to a head now, actually, as they get closer and closer. Is it going to be a dive going into turn number 3, I wonder? Another lock-up again from the Alpine on this occasion has caught the Ferrari off guard. Here comes Matthew Cassar, but again, just not able to get the traction out of the corner. Here comes Daniel Chinny down the inside line of the next corner, turn number 4, and very well crafted side by side through here. Matthew Cassar may want to welcome himself into this battle, but then they put themselves into harvesting mode and just reduce their ERS management, and they stay in that formation. But a mistake from the Ferrari has allowed Matthew Cassar straight through at turn number 6, and that is a very well-crafted corner here from Matthew Cassar, now promotes himself up to P1, albeit with that time penalty. Meanwhile, I'm not so sure what's happening with Daniel Chinny, but he's starting to fall back a little bit, and he's falling further back to Alexander Galea in P4.
Indeed, that's going to be a battle that's going to be continuously commencing. Alexander Galea, I think he's just doing a little bit of tyre saving for the moment. You know, he doesn't have to push too much. He's on a tyre that is more durable compared to the rest of the medium tyre runners ahead of him. Here comes Matthew Cassar for the lead. That's going to be a big surprise there for Andrea Borg, and for once Andrea Borg maybe feeling a little bit of pressure this time from the Mercedes, but he's going to be able to get the traction because that Merc has been absolutely unbelievable in these times around. With the inside line, Matthew Cassar sweeps into the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix ahead of the Alpine made in Chipping Norton in the UK, and he's now going to drop down to second, but this will give him a little bit of a chance to see what Cassar does whilst leading, and that is going to be the teammate of Cassar, Kirsten Kurami. We spoke about him earlier, having to pick up a little bit of performances, but was just not quite able to, and that is another moment where he's going to now fall a little bit foul of what seems to be his own issues. And now we look at Galea really trying to attack the back of that Ferrari.
And while that was all happening, Daniel Chinny really struggling a little bit. Going through turn number 10, you could see just absolutely no rotation on the front whatsoever, and then approaching into the corner, coming out of the corner rather, you thought Alexander Galea was going to put some pressure on, but then he derated going into the start finishing straight, and as a result of that one, lost a bucket of time, which may not necessarily be the worst thing in the world for the hard tyre runner, because at the moment, those in front are certainly in a strong battle. Here is the other kick Sauber of Neil Cassar. He's currently in a bit of a four-way battle at the moment for P6, as we've also got the Racing Bull, rather. Oh, a little bit of a bump up the bum, I think, there from the Aston Martin of Christian Kirby. But again, that lagging car could be a bit of an issue here. The Racing Bull of Emerson Zarb trying to put the pressure on the other Red Bull in front there of Keith Muscat in P7. But again, it's a little bit of a maybe a five-way battle now, as the McLaren of Isaac Barber is getting himself into a battle here. Remember, they're on all a mix of tyres here. Have we got people diving into the pit lane, I wonder? Oh no, we've lost the Mercedes again. We have got people diving into the pit lane. One of the Mercedes, the other Mercedes has again gone for a spin there of Kirsten Kumi, so he's having an absolute stinker of a race again, is the second Mercedes. And again, that just is a detriment, isn't it, Adam, for when it comes to the Constructors' Championship, when you've got driver A all the way at the front and driver B down at the back, you're not scoring big enough points to win a title.
No, you're really having to work hard as a team, but when some drivers aren't quite picking up their same performances, it is really, really tough. Of course, different experiences, different skill levels. Some might be absolutely sublime up at the top end of the field, and some may just be trying to learn the ropes here on this game. As big as Chundas here from Daniel Cini there. You just saw him get the washout from Andrea Borg, and this is kind of where you know, DRS trains come into play. You know, you're not able to quite get through on another car ahead, and he's really struggling, even inviting Alexander Galea. So I wonder if Cini's maybe pushed that a little bit too hard. Remember, he's got a whole hard tyre stint as well to kind of get through. So at what point do you pit for that one? That would be a completely interesting part of this race, because you know, pit stops are going to be crucial, and undercut will be absolutely massive. But with these 4 drivers staying in close contention, you know, there's really big plans to be made.
Dark horse in this race, in my opinion, is the current world champion Alexander Galea. He is on the hard tyre versus those in front of him on the medium tyre. He's got a gap of 2 seconds to David Misford as well, so he'll be on the faster tyre towards the end of this race. Here is the Red Bull of Jake Nailak. He now needs to come in, does the number 20 Red Bull, for a change of front wing, so he will now come out at the back of the field in P19, as we've also got the other Alpine this time of Aaron Dimesh, now with a time penalty for track extension issues. We are back on board with Alexander Galea. As I said, he's my dark horse. He's my favourite for this race now, because with it being on the alternate strategy and he's keeping up with the medium tyre runners, when he gets onto the medium tyres, he is going to be blisteringly quick versus those on the what will be the hard tyres, as we've got another person with a time penalty. This time it is Neil Kassar in P6.
Indeed. So I think if you're Alexander Galea, you're just keeping, you have to keep on tabs with them. Of course, they will be able to save in your relative, but oh, there goes Matthew Kassar. So he has to play the defensive role there, and Andrea Borg wants to throw it around the outside, give him the opportunity, and Daniel Cini decides to go off the road, and Alexander Galea will pull on through. Speaking of pulling on through, Andrea Borg up into the lead once again. A huge moment in this race, and Kassar will again try and rebuild on what he did. So Andrea Borg kind of knows the lines that Matthew Kassar has been taking, and will get to kind of replicate that and improve on what Kassar has given him in terms of info, because he's such a skilled driver. You know, he's the type of driver with the caliper to be able to manage these types of moments. But Kassar will want to be ahead of this one, as there goes Keith Muscat, big old spin off turn at number 7. He'll trundle back onto the racing circuit. But yeah, going back to what I said about Alexander Galea, he's going to be hoping to just keep everyone here in his relative, because he now needs to pit within the last car of this kind of 3-patch pit, and then just kind of go from there.
Well, they continue to go side by side as Matthew Kassar and Andrea Borg, but Borg getting the better exit on that occasion. And keep an eye out as well on Alexander Galea. He doesn't have to push at all, as Matthew Kassar trying to get this done. Ooh, around the outside he will go instead then. Is he going to try and do the switchback? He certainly will try, but the Alpine certainly got the more grip at the moment. Matthew Kassar, remember, with that 3-second time penalty for track extension issues that he got on lap 4 very early on in this particular race. Of course, if you're new to F1, in usual F1 circumstances, it's 4 strikes and you're out. You get 3 strikes, black and white flag, and then you get the 5-second penalty. Here, you get 2 strikes, and then your 3rd strike, you get that 3-second penalty. Now falling in out of favour for Jake Nailak, as we just see Andrea Borg diving into the pit lane. He's had enough of his medium tyres. Matthew Kassar will then reclaim the lead of this race from Alexander Galea, who now is surely got to be considering his strategy. If it was down to him, he's now got to make some serious inroads. He has to get this overtake on Matthew Kassar done if he wants to try and start using what's left of these hard tyres, and it looks like to me he's certainly getting his skates on. He now gets up to P1 and now takes the lead of this race, does the defending world champion.
Superb move there from Alexander Galea, and he'll put himself into a bit of an advantage here. It looks like Daniel Cini has come into the pits as well, so he's now a 2.5 behind Andrea Borg, which is not much of a loss. I think that's quite telling in terms of the gap. I think it was quite the right thing as well. So that's the battle with 7th and 8th. We see Simeon Nechev, who is sitting now behind the Mercedes of Kirsten Kurmi. Of course, Kurmi has had a few issues during his time, but a big old switch there from Nechev to force out around the outside, and a sweeping overtake there from the driver using the number 20 for Sauber. He'll make his way through on towards P12, and now in towards the pits comes Kassar, comes Alexander Galea, and that's a bit of a dangerous move there, I think, for Alexander Galea. Remember, he has to go on the mediums for a huge chunk of this race, what's seemingly being, what is that, over 20 laps? That's not going to last at all.
I should imagine they'll be relatively okay. I've seen 24 lap stints on hard tyres if they're well looked after. Either way, Andrea Borg now retaking the lead of this race. Now bear in mind that Lesu himself is now moving over to a medium tyre, which now that is the question that you mentioned here about whether the medium tyre can go the distance. I've seen the medium tyres go to 16 laps before they go pop, Adam. So I think with that particular move, Alexander Galea has confirmed he's doing a two-stop, and if that is the situation, he's now got to find, what's that, 2 positions and 20 seconds in order to try and make this two-stop work. Now, the medium tyre is particularly potent around here. It is a very strong tyre, but it does fall off a cliff at around about sort of 5, 6, 7 laps before you start to realise that the hard tyre is probably the better race tyre. So he hasn't got a lot of time here. I'm wondering if I've got a bit of a raised eyebrow on this strategy. What is this man, defending world champion, cooking?
It could be potentially a medium, so he's going to try and just absolutely take the life out of those medium compound tyres, kind of cut your strategy in half. So if you've got 24 laps remaining, you're looking at 12 and then 12. That is going to be a huge push here, as we now see up the inside. There goes the Aston Martin of Christian Kumi, and will make his way through on Isaac Barbara. Meanwhile, in the background here, you're now seeing Matthew Kassar with Alexander Galea right behind him in the traction of the Mercedes. You mentioned it there, James. He's been absolutely mighty. Look at the speed the Mercedes carries, and then in towards the right-hander of 4. It looks like Galea gains it all back in the braking zone.
I love the way Matthew Kassar takes turn number 4. It's absolutely class. Just taking that much curb and then getting on the power whilst he's still on the curb and still having the traction is a testament to how well set up that Mercedes is at the moment. And despite the fact that current world champion is on the faster tyre and the tyre delta suggests otherwise, has got Andrea Borg getting caught out by a bunch of people entering into the pit lane, and he's going to have to take a little bit of a warning on that one for track extension. He now comes across the line to carry on now to start his 15th lap of this race. Just up the road by about 3.5 seconds is Neil Kassar in the Kick Sauber, just behind Daniel Chinny by a little bit less than a tenth of a second, but he's derating at the moment. He's really struggling with his ERS management, so he's got to recover that energy as quickly as he possibly can, while staying in DRS of Andrea Borg, which is proving to be quite difficult for the man who is now breaching 1 second, gets it back underneath, but with the lack of electrical energy on both of those cars, that's only going to invite Matthew Kassar and of course Alexander Galea into the mix.
They aren't fully developed as well in terms of their battery. Look at Alexander Galea. He's been saving as much as he possibly can, like a Formula E car back in season 2, or sorry, should I say Gen 2? You know, where they used to lift and coast the whole kind of time where they have one battery. That's kind of what it feels like he's been doing, because that electrical energy is so high, and he gets to use that all throughout his strategy here. Now, I think he's going to go straight on the attack of Matthew Kassar. Daniel Chinny goes to second fastest lap at 1:06.558, and that's massively crucial because here we're now seeing he's had a bit of a moment. Wow, so close there, and I think he just lost it on the dirty air of Neil Kassar, but Kassar goes past Andrea Borg. This is going to invite Chinny back into the fight. Why a moment there. I think Chinny's going to try and just get through immediately. He does, and you're just seeing that gap, which fair play to Chinny, because that is closed up from about what I think it was about 2 seconds, is now down to just 0.3 of a second. He's been unbelievable, but the energy management has been so difficult for the Ferrari to manage.
Yeah, he's obviously runner-up not by mistake last time out, but I will be perfectly honest with you, I don't think Daniel Chinny's lap times have actually, in comparison to Andrea Borg's clean laps, have actually been that much better. I think Andrea Borg has actually been very unlucky. Got caught out here by a bunch of people entering in the pit lane, and then he got caught out again by Neil Cassar, deciding he wants to get in a battle that perhaps he's not really privy to. So he now enters the pit lane to get off of these now 15-lap-old hard tyres. Matthew Cassar and Alexander Galea now just coming across the start-finishing line. Here is the Racing Bull of Emerson Zarb in P7. He's looking to try and pretty much solidify a decent performance. The problem is that he had to pit a little bit earlier, so his hard tyres already 9 laps old, as we've got the Mercedes of is that the Mercedes of Kirsten Kumi, who again is struggling with managing his own race pace. Goes for a spin again, going through turn number 6, so he's really struggling out there at the moment. Is the Mercedes, and again just a testament to the issues of driver A versus driver B in this particular championship, as we've got Neil Cassar on now fresh medium tyres, finding that the tyres are not particularly up to temperature at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's not going to be an ideal scenario there for Neil
wing
Cassar.
as well.
And that's the effect. He's not got a front wing. He's going to be understeering like crazy. And you saw that massive lockup. That's going to be horrible on his front right. Meanwhile, let's have a look back here with Daniel Chinny as he continues to build the pressure here on the race leader, Andrea Forge, who's been leading the most laps here out of anyone on this racetrack. So the DRS will open. Daniel Chinny will fly on by, but he does use a lot of electrical energy doing that. And I wonder if he's looking a little bit empty on the ERS tank, as Andrea Borg has in fact just saved a lot. That is going to be Kirsten Kurmi out of this Austrian Grand Prix, and he will have to say goodbye to us and park the car there on lap 18. Super unfortunate.
Yeah, no surprises. He's spun out about 4 or 5 times in this particular race, and whilst he's doing that, his teammate's spinning plates in P3 at the moment, trying to manage his race pace, whilst also trying to manage his ERS and trying to manage what is meant to be a faster man. But I'll be honest with you, the tyre delta has not been anywhere near as strong as I thought it was for the McLaren Mercedes, as we've just got Christian Kermy. It looks like he's disconnected from the session, so his ghost will now carry on around the circuit at a slower speed. Hopefully we'll get him back in the lobby as we're going side by side between the Racing Bull and the Red Bull. Hooking tyres going through turn number 4 there is the Racing Bull of Epron Tabone, and that looked like to me Jake Malak, who now goes up to P30 in this race. We've got other battles happening up back at P2, if you don't mind, because Andrea Borg is continuing on to the back here of the Ferrari of Daniel Chinny. Is he going to go for the move going into turn number 3? He certainly will be looking for it going into turn 4 rather, but Andrea Borg just not able to find the gap, but then finds the gap in the end because he goes wide, does Daniel Chinny, and Andrea Borg now back in the lead of this race in a particularly clean event between the pair of them now, because of course they have no time penalties to their name, so this one is purely about their pure race pace now for the next 17 or 16 and a half laps.
Indeed it will. So you're looking at kind of these moments where you're just trying to really figure it all out, but the tyres will be starting to be the thing you think about. You're not really thinking about fuel, you're really just thinking about the tyres and absolutely everything. You now see Alexander Galea, who will be just trying to again put pressure on Matthew Cassar. Of that penalty will be looming on the mind here of the Mercedes driver. But now we look back here to Daniel Chinny, who has dropped back to second place once again. Oh dear, there's the ghost of car of Aaron Diemek, who was just kind of fading through his teammate. But again, down and toward the right-hander we go. Will it be a late manoeuvre for Daniel Chinny? No, he's going to save up the battery and just stay right on the rear end of Andrea Borg. This is a battle that is absolutely superb. I'm loving every second of this battle. I'm sure that they are too.
Alexander Galea has now fallen well off of the DRS of Matthew Cassar here, and I'm wondering if his tyres have already started to fall off. We did say around about sort of between 6 to 8 laps is where the medium tyre really starts to become a little bit of a problem, but he's missing apexes left, right and centre at the moment, is the defending world champion, and I think he's now going to have to just concede that maybe he hasn't got the pace. Look at that going through turn 10, he just doesn't have any mechanical grip at the moment in that McLaren Mercedes, and he's losing time hand over fist. Gap now 2 seconds between him and Matthew Cassar. He's at risk of potentially falling out of that 3-second barrier at the moment. Meanwhile, Matthew Cassar is just about to enter into the DRS territory of the two cars battling at the moment for P1 and for P1 at the moment. Matthew Cassar could go for the late breaker, elects not to. So he's going to stay within sort of 1 second. He won't have DRS on Daniel Chinny, so you'll see that gap beginning to rise once again as you've got Daniel Chinny going to go for the move. No, again, just going to keep the Alpine under pressure, but you can see the lockups happening on the front tyres for Andrea Borg, but the rear tyres on Daniel Chinny's car are locking up, so a bit of an equilibrium, bit of a standoff between the front two. While this is happening, Matthew Cassar's welcomed himself into this battle. He's now about half a second behind, and it's a three-way battle for the lead.
Indeed it is now. This is going to be massively interesting again. It looks like Alexander Galea just hasn't been able to extract anything out of those tyres. He's 3 seconds behind Matthew Cassar, and that is going to be a massive amount of trouble because, of course, he's now going to have to pit, drop 20 seconds back, and that should put him back into 6th. So I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be able to maybe mount an attack on this one, unless he's doing a little bit of tyre saving to try and make it toward the end. But again, Daniel Chinny will be looking at the rear of that Alpine. Not anymore, because he's now ahead, and after all of that saving, he's into the lead. But who's going to get the better traction? It looks like Andrea Borg will just pop out and then pop back into the stream and then try and find that space. There it is on the right hand side. It looks like Daniel Chinny will just scream a little bit. Oh, there's a bit of contact. I think that was just the particle being flicked up backed up on the screen, and Matthew Cassar says, hello, I am here. I'm going to maybe make a move here, but you're not going to know when.
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? Andrea Borg was just trying to close down the gap, but unfortunately in that situation there's absolutely no sort of positive moves going through there if you're going to close off the door as someone that is actually there. So a little bit of learning there potentially from the man leading this race. Matthew Cassar, well, his only way of winning this race now is he's got to go side by side with people, force them off the track and try and get some time penalties on the front cars in front of him, so then they can be of all a bit of an equal standoff with 3 seconds each. So he's got to play the mind game now, force people off the circuit, allow them to get those time penalties. Is Cassar going to look for that, I wonder? He's using the toe of Andrea Borg whilst Daniel Chinny retakes the lead of this race going into turn 3. It's a double lockup from Andrea Borg. That's going to leave him a bit vulnerable. Actually, it's well handled here. It might be a little bit of over-dramatisation from the spectator, but either way, Andrea Borg retaking this lead of this race after a fabulous little switch back here. Around the outside, Matthew Cassar, not so sure here. The switchback not usually an option here. He will have the traction out of the corner, but Daniel Chinny probably will have this in hand, no issue whatsoever. 13 laps to go in this race. Now you've got Alexander Galea nearly 5 seconds back from Matthew Cassar on tyres that are going to feel horrible in comparison to those around him. I think Alexander Galea is now going to be wondering about the Williams behind him here, because I think he might be dropping to P5 imminently.
Indeed, so he's going to have to start thinking about the cars behind. I wonder if he should just pit now onto a set of medium compound tyres. You know, you're losing so much time compared to the cars around you, that you should just kind of maybe give up the ghost a little bit. And there you go. He's, I think, made his way into the pit lane, and that is exactly what he's done. Is he gone for a set of medium compound tyres? It looks like yes, the yellow strip is on those his tyres, so he will get out maybe just in front of his teammate. I think he's just going to fall a little bit behind because of maybe the pit engine. No, he actually is he's ahead. Mighty stuff. And again, this top three just gets ever more spicy.
Ooh. A bit late there, and around the outside, Daniel Chinny. So there, Matthew Cassar nearly putting a bit of a challenge on the Ferrari. Now, Daniel Chinny was a bit wide at turn 1. That'll be another warning for the Ferrari. Now, if I remember rightly, that was his second excursion off circuit that I've certainly seen. So unless he lifted off and managed to save himself a warning, I have a sneaking suspicion that Ferrari now is on his last warning before he gets a time penalty here. It looks like they're all diving into the pit lane. Is this a 2-stop? It's a 2-stop for the 3 of them in front here. Suddenly, Alexander Galea's strategy is back on course here. Now they're going to move on to a set of medium tyres. Everyone's going to be on the same tyre. David Mifsford, on the other hand, is he going to be the hero of the day? Is he going to stay out on these set of hard tyres all the way to the end? I'm not so sure. And while this is all happening, by the way, the Styrian Mountains are starting to get a little bit dark. We've still got some blue skies out there, but it is certainly starting to get a little bit overcast. That will reduce the temperature, and that will benefit those on a softer compound of tyre, the medium tyre runners.
Yeah, that's going to be quite interesting to see how that all kind of pans out now. But yeah, you just see now, it looks like Chinny's gone hard.
hard.
Daniel
Yeah.
Chinny's gone onto a set of hard compound tyre. I mean, I think it's because he feels more comfortable. You know, notice how in the early stages he was absolutely leathering the back there of Andrea Borg, really putting him under pressure. So I think for Cassar and Andrea Borg, the medium tyres are working to their benefit. But for Chinny, he just felt so much more kind of refined on the hard compound tyres. Yellow flag for what I feel is going to be, not too sure, that might be an Alpine at the back there of what seems to be Adam Vinek. So I think he may have had another little spin during his time. Yeah, we're just having a look there, and you were right there, James. The skies have gone a little bit dark. I was kind of raising an eyebrow at you, thinking, are you right saying this? But it does look like, yeah, you were right on this one. It's gone a little bit more dark as the kind of clouds start to loom over. David Mifsud has gone into the pits. Is that car in the barrier? I think I just saw a car maybe in the barrier.
I believe that was the McLaren of Isaac Barbara. Looks like Isaac Barbara was in the barrier, and then he dives into the pit lane. So I'm wondering if he was missing his pit lane entry or something. It looked like to me he was completely missing turn 10 actually, but then he's dived into the pit lane. So I don't know if that was a little weird glitch or something. Either way, it looks like to me that this battle continuing. And Daniel Chinny, absolutely right to stick with the hard tyre, because I think the hard tyre has probably been the better race tyre throughout this entire race so far. So he feels a lot more confident using the hard tyre. He knows he can get to the end and have plenty of life still left on that compound, whilst the medium tyre runners, of course, are going to be burning through their tyres, especially this man, Matthew Cassar, because he's directly behind the Ferrari of Daniel Chinny, and as we've got another penalty there for Neil Cassar, I believe he's up to 9 seconds with the penalties now, is the kick Sauber. Either way, it's going to start to get a little bit more on the more aggressive side now here for the likes of Daniel Chinny. He needs to start utilising what's left of the tyres, especially if the heavens start to open, which is prone in the Styrian Mountains. Suddenly you can have a sharp downpour, and the intermediate tyre may be the choice tyre to be on. And with this little time left in the race, anything can happen, but it usually does.
Indeed. It's going to be massively interesting to see if that downpour does come, and when does it come, because if it's in like the last 3 laps, that could be completely interesting. Imagine having to do a race where just 2 laps on intermediate tyres. That would just be completely absurd. And I think we've got a car off at turn number 10. They've managed to get going,
Jake
and
Malak.
it is Jake Malak. Thank you very much in my ear. And Simeon Neto now having a look at this battle, because that is Isaac Barbara who's battling with Neil Cassar, and just ahead is Efrem Sabot, who came from the back of the grid. He looks like he's going to try and score points here in this race, but with that 3-second time penalty looming over his head, yeah, that's not quite going to be the final result. But he is battling hard with Isaac Barbara, but he's going to continue on that one, but he's going to have to give up the ghost this time around. It looks like Dave Mifsud is going to set the fastest lap at 1:06.422 for the Williams Racing team. Still sitting in a good position there of 5th.
Oh, keeping up with this battle here in the front of the lead here as Daniel Chinny getting really close up there with Andrea Borg, and here comes Matthew Cassar getting in the battle as well. Are they going to go 3 wide potentially into this corner? No, Matthew Cassar thinks better of it. Chinny will now retake the lead of this race from Andrea Borg, but Matthew Cassar still is just struggling at the moment, hemorrhaging time at P3 as we've got someone, one of the Red Bulls has gone for a spin at turn 10. It looks like the other Red Bull this time of Keith Muscat has gone for a spin. He's now down in P15. While this is all happening, Matthew Cassar is now just trying to make some kind of overtake, but as it stands, Andrea Borg and Daniel Chinny managing the race really well between the pair of them. And then when Matthew Cassar thinks he's got a little bit of inroad, suddenly they've got some serious pace, the pair of them, especially out of this corner, turn number 10, as they now approach the corner. And look at that, the Ferrari of Daniel Chinny has got an opportunity. He's using DRS on back markers.
Yep, really interesting to see how the back markers are going to play into this one. And I think that at this moment in time, you are kind of maybe looking a little bit ahead compared to the ones around you, because, you know, you can definitely maybe take this a little bit into endurance style and use those back markers to play a little bit of a part in this little battle, maybe get them get the leader distracted. And that looks like Jake Meldak is out of this race. Where has he made that retirement? It's on the exit of turn number 5. In fact, so if we go with our leaders, there he is, just parked up, and he's thought, I am not doing this race anymore. I've had too many spins, and I'm going to probably do something better with my time. So he is now out of this Austrian Grand Prix as we continue with our top field. Wow, and my word, I don't know about you, James, but I can sense this being a huge grand finale to the end of this one.
Especially if it starts raining as well. I just want to put my 10 pence in for just a very quick second. I really don't like it when people choose to retire on circuit, because we've seen previously on other game titles where if you retire on circuit, even if you choose to retire by the menu, it could instigate some kind of safety car action. So they've got to be careful. If you're going to choose to retire, just do it in the pit lane. While this is all happening, we've got a bit of a lock up there from the Andrea Borg, trying to go side by side with Daniel Chinny. While this is happening, there's a battle happening at the back of the field, right in front of those at the front of the field. Here, where we've got the Alpine trying to go around the outside of turn number 4. Will Daniel Chinny not have the grip on the hard tyre? No, he will. They're still going side by side as they approach now turn number 5. Surely the Ferrari is going to give up ghost here, and Andrea Borg takes the lead of this race, but they'll carry on in formation at the moment. And Matthew Cassar will be wondering, what can I do to get past these two at the moment? They're battling so well. I've got absolutely no space whatsoever. It's the Aston Martin of course, Shecky getting out of the way there. So Andrea Borg leading from Daniel Chinny, and once again Matthew Cassar still holding stationary in P3.
It is, and it's kind of a bit of a game of chess at the minute. We now approach lap 31 here in Spielberg, and the clouds are definitely starting to loom over. I've had it before, twice in fact I believe, where we've had rain on the last lap. Not in the F1 game, but we've had a massive amount of rain in the last lap here. Daniel Chinny, can he go for the lead? Yes, he can. Will he be later on the brakes? He'll just put that nose ahead, leave a little bit of space there, up towards 3 wide, and Matthew Cassar will stream on bypass the Ferrari as Andrea Borg just keeps his position. Chinny will be feeling a lot of pressure, but remember, he is able to take a little bit more out of his hard compound size compared to what these medium drivers are feeling. He'll blast ahead with the energy recovery system he's got in his car, and will just keep that a second place because he just wants to be sitting behind Andrea Borg for now until maybe a lap or two before the end. Is again a yellow flag because that is seemingly to be Keith Muscat, I think. No, I think that was my apology. That's to Efron Tabone. Now it's Efron Tabone having a bit of an error out of the last corner, but again, lap 32. Again, James, this is going to be an absolutely mighty end to this one.
Oh, what has Matthew Cassar got to do in order to try and get a position above P3 at the moment? He is throwing everything and the kitchen sink at an opportunity to get this position done. Here comes Chinny again on Andrea Borg as they go into turn number 3. It's definitely been a hot spot for overtaking between these three. Is Matthew Cassar going to find any kind of grip on this lap? He will not, and it looks like he's going to have to hold station. I don't think there's going to be any overtake from the Mercedes, and I think the Alpine's also going to hold station as well as they approach turn number 4. So Andrea Borg still holding on at the moment in that Alpine Renault to potentially battle with Daniel Chinny, but with every passing lap, the hard tyre is becoming the better tyre, and all Daniel Chinny needs to do is stay in front, find the grip, and if anything, he might also get the I was just going to say, he might also get the DRS as well of the Racing Bull, I believe, of Holdzef. That is the Racing Bull of Efron Tabone, but he will continue around this now on their 33rd tour of this racetrack. And it looks like to me that Daniel Chinny just starting to put a little bit of an edge on those behind him on the medium tyre.
He is indeed, and those tyres, I wonder how those mediums are starting to cope. 8 laps in, they will start to be disintegrating just that little bit. He does, and he'll need to maybe make something happen. Lock up there on the front right as it loaded up. With the brake pressure that was kind of pressing into the pads, and now on towards turn number 4. Will he be able to spot a gap? No, he's too far back. He is over half a second to the back of Daniel Chinny, and I think this may have been the reason why he went onto the hard tyre. He would have been able to push all throughout the remaining laps to be able to then hold on to this potential lead, whilst the medium tyres are starting to die out. So that is why those hard tyres were selected for the Ferrari. Is not a silly Ferrari strategy that we usually see in the real life Formula 1. This was smart doings from Daniel Chinny. And rain.
Absolutely fabulous, and we did say the rain had stopped falling at some point, but this will benefit those that are on the softer compounder tyre because there's more contact patch on the grass. So now Daniel Chinny will be putting his skates on to get this race done as quickly as he possibly can. Gap 0.4 of a second. As I said, look, he's already lost about a tenth or two as the track becomes a little bit more saturated. Going through into the next corner, Andrea Borg will not see this corner, but he may see it in the next one. Look, already losing the rear at the moment is Daniel Chinny. He knows he's got time. His time is limited. He needs to get on with this now. With the rain now falling here in the Styrian Mountains, we are going to be approaching the penultimate lap of this race at the end of this lap. And again, wide going through turn number 4. Matthew Cassar also beginning to struggle. I'm wondering what's going to happen with Alexander Galea at the moment, because he's already 9 seconds down, and I'm not sure what the Ferrari of Samuel Borges is thinking to switch onto an intermediate this early. It's almost certainly not time for intermediates, but the track's conditions are going to deteriorate. The question is, can they adapt fast enough, the drivers?
I think that's the main question. You've hit it on the head here, and it looks like somebody's gone round, and that's going to be Simeon Nechev for the Sauber team. That looks like that's going to be massively unfortunate. And into the pits comes the sole Red Bull car of Keith Muscat. That's going to be a hugely interesting tactic there. Has he gone for inches as well? He has, as Cassar has a moment out of that corner, and he'll carry that all the way through. All the momentum is starting to go here, but I think the mediums are now starting to come into a bit of a mojo here. Adam Koreshi will now go into the pit lane. He has a penalty, but he's pitting for injuries. Look at that. He's starting to get no grip. No grip there for the Alpine car. And at this point, you can't pit because you have 1 lap to go. You'll have 1 lap remaining. So unless you want to make a wild decision, you've got to stay out on track. That's the only thing you can do. Emerson Zarb has decided to pit because, of course, he's only going to have 2 laps, and they're absolutely sliding away. They're chopping away at the steering wheel. Chinny's slightly wide through there. So do you pit at this rate? I don't know if any of you have come from our GT series, because we had an absolute mad one at Nürburgring. None of them pit. Cassar's also going to stay out. They have to. There is no point in making a wild change there. And it's all about Chinny, and can he make it to the line?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to eat my hat on this one. I called out Isaac Barbara for coming in for a set of intermediate tyres a lap ago. He absolutely nailed it. He found 2.5 seconds alone on the other McLaren of Isaac Barber. He's absolutely flying at the moment on the intermediate tyre. Back towards the front though. He's already broken the 1 second barrier against Andrea Borg. This is a race that's falling off a cliff. Look, everyone is falling off of the circuit at turn number 3. This race is all done and dusted as far as Daniel Chinny is concerned. The question is, does it come across the start finishing line, or does it go into a wall? That is the main question. Can he manage this one? Here he comes then going through. We'll just follow in. Oh, it's a well-held tank slapper from Andrea Borg. Here you've got people lapping him. He's spun as Andrea Borg. Matthew Cassar takes P2. He's finally got P2. Will the 3 second gap though be enough? That is the question. Back though to Daniel Chinny. Where is he at the moment? He's 5 seconds in front here, and he is struggling. He's nursing. He's swimming his car around the rest of the circuit in what is a completely saturated Austrian Grand Prix. What an absolutely fabulous race this has been from Daniel Chinny. He was hoping to hold on to his crown after winning this race last time out, but he will continue to do so in what is now a boat, a Ferrari-shaped boat. He wins here in Austria. Matthew Cassar will be wondering, finally, how I managed to get to P2. He finishes in P2. Andrea Borg, the pole sitter, the championship leader, will be disappointed that he's got the bottom step of the podium with P3. And somehow out of nowhere, what a great, valiant effort from Alexander Galea to finish in P4 and only 3 seconds back after being 8 seconds back. Misford finishes in P5. What a valiant effort, and what a valiant strategy call from Ferrari this time out. A great effort from the Ferrari of Samuel Borg to pit in 1 lap earlier, be the brave man to go onto a set of intermediates. He knew this track was deteriorating rapidly, completely caught me off guard, and he finishes in a very, very valiant P6 for Ferrari, and a great points haul from them. Milanist then finishes in P7. That is the Racing Bull of Emerson Zarb. You've got Michael Misford McMullen, again a valiant effort from Williams. He spins over the line, does the Williams, and finishes in P8. There is the P9 of his smooth operator, that is Isaac Barbaro, finishing P8 after penalties, after him spinning out as well. Michael Misford McMullen. This is the retired car, I believe, Aston Martin of Christian Kermy. He couldn't reconnect back into the session, so I'm not sure he's going to hold on to his position, but he'll come across the line in P10. What a race that turned out to be in the end, but Daniel Chinny holds on to his Austrian crown.
Oh, what a fantastic win there from Daniel Chinny. That's his third podium at the Austrian Grand Prix as well. He had it back in season 6 with Red Bull, season 7 when he was with Red Bull, and now he had to win once again with Ferrari, and a fantastic finish for him, and he'll launch his way up into a huge place in the championship. I believe, I haven't done the maths yet, but I believe he's put himself up into 4th in the Drivers' Championship. How big of a result will that be?
Yeah, and what bit of a result this will be as well. Andrea Borg, who's managed to finish on the podium again in this race, but he'll be disappointed, I think, in the end with P3. Let's take a very quick look at these final results as quickly as we possibly can. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll appear on the screen. If not, we will sort of reconcile what has this been an absolute blinder of a race. It looks like we've got a black screen glitch, so that will be the end of this particular event. Let's take a quick look, if you don't mind, at the calendar, because the calendar is suggesting straight away we're going to be heading straight forward into the Temple of Speed. We're at Monza next time out here, Adam. 27th of the 10th. That will be a bit of an interesting one for certain for round number 4. Then we take a trip to Saudi Arabia around 5. And a quick note for everyone, Bahrain and Mexico have now gone back a week. So we're now on the 10th of November for Bahrain, 17th of November for Mexico. Then it's a week break before we get to our round off as finale at the typical race of finales, Abu Dhabi, on the 1st of December. But Temple of Speed next week shouldn't rain, but if it does, that will make for an interesting event. Very low downforce. It's all going to be about the bravery going into turn 1, maybe looking into the Parabolica corner.
It will be for sure a massively interesting one. I think, there's going to be multiple drivers. Oh, apologies on that one.
I'm not Adam Reed.
Yeah.
I'm the other guy on that side. There we go. There's Adam Reed. Go ahead.
This is me. This is gonna. Yeah, of course, Monza's going to be completely different compared to what we just had. We're going to have drivers just absolutely slipstream training each other, and of course, it's almost like. Once you kind of go out of line, you're going to lose the slipstream. So I think we're going to have a lot of contenders in at that one. Compared to maybe this one, we had about probably 4 drivers that kind of slipped down to 3, that maybe slipped down to 2. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of cars just completely having their own battle. So I think our director's going to have a very difficult time next time out when we hit the Temple of Speed in northeast northeast Milan. So indeed, keep an eye out for that one and all of our socials that are at Velocity Esports Racing. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to kind of talk about after this one.
Well, that is the end of this particular stream. We'll be taking a very, very short break before we head over to the Temple of Speed in Monza next time out. How do you wrap that one up? Well, your defending champion is struggling once again. He loses points to the likes of Andrea Borg, the championship leader, but he only gets P3 because Daniel Chinny, the king of Austria, continues with his crown going into the next season. And he's happy to maintain that lead and maintain the win at Austria. Question is, though, who's going to get the crown at the Temple of Speed? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Ta-ra.